We're talking about health, men's health, and there's so many things we can talk about. But when we were planning this, we were trying to make sure it's something that is practical, something that we can probably apply to our lives readily, rather than going through a long process. So whatever we've been discussing is a very simple way of approaching your health. And so the title is going to be interesting as we get into it. But first of all, you notice I have Pac-Man Classic. And if you had saw my shirt, I'm wearing my Pac-Man. Now, if I were to say, show me a show of hands of those who know who Pac-Man is, I don't know. You may just give away your age, or maybe you're very, should I say, adventurous, because Pac-Man goes way back.
Yeah.
And I grew up on Pac-Man, you know, playing Pac-Man on the computer. When we had computers, before you had computer, you played it on the arcade. It was an arcade game. And why am I using this anyhow? Pac-Man, as we talk about health. Because when you really understand Pac-Man, it's all about survival. If you've ever played it before, I can tell you right now, and if you plan on playing it at all, you have to move. It's all about moving and knowing where to move. Because if you don't move, you're going to get eaten. But if you want to get your points, you got to eat all those fruits as they move around and all those other things coming at you. But the whole idea is moving, knowing when to move. But if you ever stay still for too long, game over. And you got to start all over again. And so it's the same thing in life when it comes to health. The way God has made us, we were made to move. And just think about this for a moment, because we have a premise when we talk about health. Health is not just the anatomy and dealing with muscles and dealing with diseases and all those things. But if you go back to the creation, think about what God created first in relation to man. If you notice, he created the body first. And I know we like to spiritualize things, but before he breathed the breath of life into Adam, Adam was a body, which means the body is important. And so one of the points I want us to consider as we look at what we'd like to cover in the next few months is how important is my health? And we looked at a couple of scenarios, and here are some points I want to share very quickly. Holistically, a person includes the mental, of course, the spiritual and the emotional, but obviously the physical. And they work together holistically. It's going to go from here. When I just talked about Pac-Man and all that, but we want to talk about taking care of your temple. That's what I'm leading up to. So when we talk about the body, we use the term temple because the scripture actually says that, don't you know that your body is what? The temple. So God has placed not only that physical aspect, but a spiritual component to it. So when we're talking about health, don't just talk about muscles and sinews and joints and the different systems, because while they all are important, there's a spiritual element. And that's what I want to imply and emphasize in our presentation. So number one, if you look at 1 Corinthians 6, verse 19 to 20, it says, or do you not know that your body is the temple of the Holy Spirit who is in you, whom you have from God, and you are not your own. You notice that there? Why not? For you were bought with a price. Therefore glorify God in your body and in your spirit, which are God's. So ultimately, our body, who we are, belongs to God. And we have a responsibility as stewards to take care of our temple. Here's a beautiful quote taken from the book Desire of Ages, page 161. It says, from eternal ages, it was God's purpose that every created being, from the bright and holy seraph to man, should be a temple for the indwelling of the Creator. So we were built, we were designed, we were made for God to dwell within us. And it's only because of the sin problem why we're having issues with that. But thank God, the word salvation, salve, is relating to something that is health. If you have a sore or a burn or an injury, they can put a salve on it. That's salvation. So when Jesus came into our planet, he brought salve for the injury of sin. He brought salvation. And then he says, take care of your temple. So what we decided to do as we were discussing it as a team is that what can we present to our men to help them in terms of taking care of their temple? So we came up with some pilot projects. One of them is called, as you can see on the screen, it's called Waste No Time. It's a play on words. It's not your W-A-S-T-E, but rather your W-A-I-S-T. Waste no time. And we're going to spend some time, another time, on that. But the whole issue is that waist circumference. And some of us probably know what I'm talking about. You're probably looking down at your waist right now as I'm talking about it. But we won't talk about that today. The other project that we want to talk about will set the stage for all of that. And that is what we call Own It. Men are made to move. Own it means take responsibility. And why is that? Because what we have noticed as a society is that lifestyle diseases can be prevented. A lot of the diseases that men and others are suffering from are actually, if I can use the term here, man-made. These are lifestyle diseases like diabetes and hypertension. Yeah, there may be some exception to the rule, but in general, we bring these things upon ourselves. So how can we prevent them? And if we have them, how can we possibly manage them or reverse them? We're going to talk about that in a minute. So what we want as we talk about Own It is that we want to talk about you and I being proactive. Just like those men that Jesus said, arise in our devotion, arise, take up your bed and walk, or as he said to the other, arise, take up your bed and go home. If these men did not use the power of choice to follow Christ's command, they would remain paralyzed. In other words, they had to make a choice, as I noted in the devotion. So in our circumstances today, we can be healthy by choice, not chance. We have to be proactive. We have to own it. We have to take responsibility. We have to be accountable men. We have to be accountable for our health. If we want to enjoy it with our wives, if we want to enjoy it with our children, if we want to enjoy it with our grandchildren, and in some cases our great-grandchildren, well, surely you want to be in good health. That's not going to come by blinking an eye or crossing your fingers or squeezing. It's not going to work that way. We have to make a choice. We have to own it. No one is responsible for your health. You are responsible for your health. No one is responsible for my health. I am responsible for my health. Therefore, we need to own it. Here are some very interesting facts I want to share. These are Canadian facts, by the way. So we're not using general facts from the world, but here are 7 health facts related to what men need to know. Number 1, only 30% of a man's overall health is determined by his genetics. That's 1/3. 70% is controllable through lifestyle. Just think about that. Most of the time that you and I are sick, we caused it. Here's another fact. Men live 9 years in poor health, mostly preventable by making small lifestyle changes. And we're going to talk about those small changes today. Another point, mental wellness. Inactive men are 60% more likely to suffer from depression than those who are active. And especially during this pandemic of COVID-19, please note, and I'm sure Pastor Pule will mention that later on, we do have a special mental health presentation coming up in the future. But think about it. 60% of us are likely to suffer from depression if we are inactive, if you're a couch potato. But not only that, it might be based on your job. You work in the office, you're sitting, you're an engineer, whatever it may be. Most of the time you're sitting. It's a sedentary type of lifestyle, inactive. And when you go home, you're tired, you sit, you eat, you sit, you watch television, you sit, you chat with your family, whatever it may be. But we are inactive, and it can lead to depression. Another thing, and this may not apply to us, but about drinking. And for those who may drink, have tuned in this evening, it's shown that those who consume 4 to 10 drinks a week are most to have lower risk of developing diabetes. 2, drinking more than 10 drinks a week, most also will double rather your risk. For those of us who are Adventists who don't drink, that does not apply to us. What about sleep? Do we get enough sleep? Well, guess what? We need 7 to 8 hours. Men who sleep 7 to 8 hours a night have about 60% less risk of a fatal heart attack than those who sleep 5 hours. Some of you guys are saying you're holding on to your heart right now because that's probably the amount of hours you get in sleep. But you're just leading yourself into a heart attack. The other point that we need to know about men is that men who climb 50 stairs or walk city blocks a day, 5 city blocks rather, a day, may lower their risk of a heart attack by 25%. Yes, skip the elevator, take the stairs. During lunchtime, go for a walk after lunch. During break time, go for a walk instead. And what about nutrition? How easy is this? If you get 5 to 7 servings of fruit and veggies and a simple glass of orange juice, 1 potato and 1 carrot, half an avocado, I love avocados, and a pear, you're doing all right. But these are just some points to keep in mind if you're going to own it. These are simple stuff to keep in mind. Now, CSEPS has given us some guidelines for adults 18 to 64. Matter of fact, if you're above 64, it's okay. This applies to you as well. And what they're suggesting is to achieve health benefits, adults ages 18 to 64 years should accumulate at least 150 minutes of moderate to vigorous intensity aerobics physical activities per week, in bouts of even 10 minutes or more. In other words, if you're doing about 30 minutes of moderate to vigorous aerobics physical activity, it could be on your treadmill, it could be on an indoor bike, it could be on an elliptical machine, it could be in a class. Well, because of this pandemic, you may not be able to go to a class, but you can watch these classes on YouTube and also on Zoom. If you get like 30 minutes over a period of maybe 5 days or so, then you're doing all right. It adds up to the total amount of time. If that's too much for you, I was just in a prayer group where one of the brothers just came out of surgery. Well, it might be 10 minutes. It all depends on your circumstances, but try to get at least 150 minutes. And that just gives you the base. Those of us who, we have gym memberships, or, we're into CrossFit and different things. So we're pretty active already. This will apply to people in general and specifically to those of us who are inactive. You want to make sure you're including a lot of major groups like walking, running, squatting, stuff like that, that involves the lower body where most of our muscles are in terms of the larger groups of muscles are in our legs. It's probably still nice to do things outdoors, and I'm going to share with you what we have been doing over here in Windsor. We started, and WAM, as I told you, is a short for Windsor Adventist Men's Ministry. And what we have been doing, very simple, is that we do what is called a walk in the park. Every Thursday at 6 o'clock, we meet at this local park. And the way it's designed, it's like a whole circumference. It's a nice circle. It's approximately, I think, maybe 3.4 kilometers. And so we would meet, then we would start off in a walk. And, we naturally split into maybe one person talking to another or three, but we're walking and talking as men of God and talking about the day, talking about life. And before you know it, we've just walked almost 3.5 kilometers. Sometimes we're cracking jokes. Sometimes we're sharing something spiritual, but we're walking. And at the end of it, we have a little refreshment. Most times we have some nice coconut water, by the way, and some mangoes or some grapes, whatever it may be at the end. And then we have a prayer, and then we go home. Everything is done in about an hour. I would say we get there at 6, and in most cases, we're done by 7. And so we've taken a few pictures. You can see some of the brothers there. At least 2 of them are online. Pastor Alex is there. Randall is in the picture there as well. And so we walk. And if you notice, when Jesus healed the man, he says, take up your bed, go home. How is he going to get home? He's got to walk home. In one situation, he says, take up your bed and walk. They hadn't walked for a long time. Remember, one of them hadn't walked for 38 years. But Jesus says, go ahead and walk. So walking is awesome. A matter of fact, there's a lot of benefits to walking. Here's some clips. He's having a good time. It's kind of frozen. I'm not sure why. Let's see if we can get that moving. Oops. We got, for some reason, our screen. Let's see if I can go back to that. What happened there, Pastor? Can you help me? For some reason, our screen.
Just go ahead and reshare the screen.
Okay, let's go back to that. Reshare. It's not coming up in my reshare for some reason. But what I was saying, I'm going to work on that. What I was saying was that we just decided to walk. A matter of fact, I'll tell you, it started with just 3 of us. 3 men got together, started walking on a Thursday evening, and we started sharing with other men that were walking. And guess what? They just joined us. Some come on a regular basis, and others come now and then. But either way, that's what we do. We walk, and so it's a really simple way of adding to your health. And I'm trying my best just to get it up, and I'm not seeing it up as yet for some reason. But I'll tell you the rest nonetheless. We don't want to spend too much time on that. Pastor, I'm not totally sure, but so we would go walking. So I can still share with us at least some benefits of walking. And I, rather than reinvent the wheel, I went straight to arthritis.org. Now, some of us probably already have arthritis, so you probably want to hear this. It improves circulation. Your bones get stronger. Why? If you notice, when you're walking, bones love a level of impact. Depending on your situation, it may be a hard impact or soft impact. The bone actually develops when you're moving. You enjoy longer life. It lightens the mood. Talk to the men, they'll tell you. We're always cracking jokes about a number of things, and the scenery, the aesthetics, everything adds to it. You might have been in a bad mood, or something rough happened that day, and all of a sudden just being outside and your mood changes. You can lose weight just walking, not even changing your diet necessarily. It strengthens your muscles. It improves your sleep. When you get home, you sleep better. Supports your joints, improves your breathing. It slows down mental decline. It lowers Alzheimer's risk, the whole idea of getting Alzheimer's. There's so many benefits to it that walking has. I'm trying to just still get that screen up because I wanted to show you guys something that is really beneficial. And let me just get out of here. And yeah, so the whole idea of walking is what I want to share with us this evening. I think I got it back up, Pastor. Amen. Somebody's been praying. Whoever you were, hallelujah. Hallelujah. Let's go here now. And we're going to share that screen. And here we go. And let's go from here. Current screen. Okay. So what I want to get to is why we need water now. Because walking is good. That's one thing that we're going to challenge all of our men to do is start walking. You can walk as a group, you can walk by yourself, you can walk in nature. One of the best things to do is walking in nature. Winter is coming. However, we know how to dress for winter and we know how to avoid terrible winter weather. So we're not saying to walk through a storm, but if you dress properly, even in winter, you can have a nice walk. But water, one of our challenges is going to be also to drink water. A lot of people, you'll be very surprised in this industry, the fitness industry, you'll be surprised how many people will tell us, number one, they don't like water. Number two, they don't drink water. So I want to share a very important video about water. When we come back, we'll share some handouts with you, and then we'll have a Q&A where you can ask questions.
Water is virtually everywhere, from soil moisture and ice caps to the cells inside our own bodies. Depending on factors like location, fat index, age, and sex, the average human is between 55 and 60% water. At birth, human babies are even wetter. Being 75% water, they are swimmingly similar to fish. But their water composition drops to 65% by their first birthday. So what role does water play in our bodies? And how much do we actually need to drink to stay healthy? The H2O in our bodies works to cushion and lubricate joints, regulate temperature, and to nourish the brain and spinal cord. Water isn't only in our blood. An adult's brain and heart are almost 3/4 water. That's roughly equivalent to the amount of moisture in a banana. Lungs are more similar to an apple at 83%, and even seemingly dry human bones are 31% water. If we are essentially made of water and surrounded by water, why do we still need to drink so much? Well, each day we lose 2 to 3 liters through our sweat, urine, and bowel movements, and even just from breathing. While these functions are essential to our survival, we need to compensate for the fluid loss. Maintaining a balanced water level is essential to avoid dehydration or overhydration, both of which can have devastating effects on overall health. At first detection of low water levels, sensory receptors in the brain's hypothalamus signal the release of antidiuretic hormone. When it reaches the kidneys, it creates aquaporins, special channels that enable blood to absorb and retain more water, leading to concentrated dark urine. Increased dehydration can cause notable drops in energy, mood, skin moisture, and blood pressure, as well as signs of cognitive impairment. A dehydrated brain works harder to accomplish the same amount as a normal brain, and it even temporarily shrinks because of its lack of water. Overhydration, or hyponatremia, is usually caused by overconsumption of water in a short amount of time. Athletes are often the victims of overhydration because of complications in regulating water levels in extreme physical conditions. Whereas the dehydrated brain amps up the production of antidiuretic hormone, the overhydrated brain slows or even stops releasing it into the blood. Sodium electrolytes in the body become diluted, causing cells to swell. In severe cases, the kidneys can't keep up with the resulting volumes of dilute urine. Water intoxication then occurs, possibly causing headache, vomiting, and in rare instances, seizures or death. But that's a pretty extreme situation. On a normal day-to-day basis, maintaining a well-hydrated system is easy to manage for those of us fortunate enough to have access to clean drinking water. For a long time, conventional wisdom said that we should drink 8 glasses a day. That estimate has since been fine-tuned. Now, the consensus is that the amount of water we need to imbibe depends largely on our weight and environment. The recommended daily intake varies from between 2.5 to 3.7 liters of water for men and about 2 to 2.7 liters for women, a range that is pushed up or down if we are healthy, active, old, or overheating. While water is the healthiest hydrator, other beverages, even those with caffeine like coffee or tea, replenish fluids as well. And water within food makes up about a fifth of our daily H2O intake. Fruits and vegetables like strawberries, cucumbers, and even broccoli are over 90% water and can supplement liquid intake while providing valuable nutrients and fiber. Drinking well might also have various long-term benefits. Studies have shown that optimal hydration can lower the chance of stroke, help manage diabetes, and potentially reduce the risk of certain types of cancer. No matter what, getting the right amount of liquid makes a world of difference in how you'll feel, think, and function day to day.
Well, shout out to Ted. Great place for videos. I didn't think I can do it any better than they did. And I hope you learned a lot about water. We need it. Matter of fact, as you learned, a greater percentage of the liquid in our body is made of water. Just this evening, I had to go give blood, and if you're not drinking a lot of water, then that can be a problem. If you're exercising, you need water. A matter of fact, just sitting, your body is using the benefits of water, as you've just learned. So not only do we want to walk, but we also want to drink water. And Pastor Pulley has a lovely spreadsheet he's going to share with us. I think you can get it in PDF form and possibly even as an Excel. But also, there are some apps out there, like one of the apps, thank you, Pastor, and that can be sent to you. One of the apps that I like to use is iCardio. You can get it on Apple, and you should be able to get it as an Android from it's called the Video. I think it's called. I'm not a big Android fan. I'm sorry for those Android fans out there. I'm an Apple boy. But nonetheless, the thing is that you can use apps. If you have a Fitbit, if you got an Apple Watch, these will record your steps, it'll record the activities, you can enter a food journal. But all we're asking you to do, you don't have to go buy a Fitbit or an Apple Watch, or even download the app. We have a very simple template to use. So for instance, we want you to look at the next 30 days. Choose the activity. If you walked, make a note of it. If you ran, a matter of fact, every Thursday, I ran 5K with my client, and we'll be doing that even through the winter as well. So pray for me that I don't freeze. You see, I don't have hair like some of you do, and all my heat escapes. But nonetheless, we're going to be running, so I'll record that. What if you have a gym membership, you go to the gym, you exercise, record that. But we want to emphasize walking. Even if you exercise in the gym and so forth, incorporate walking. We're trying to get our men to walk. And so you would put, let's say you walked 2 kilometers. You write activity, walk for how long? How long did it take you to walk it? I don't know. You write it in. Did you drink your water? As you notice, we have to drink a lot of water. We have to drink over two liters of water. Most of us drink a glass of water and think that's enough. Do you know that just 1.5 liter is just pretty much like the base of what your body needs? So most time we are actually living dehydrated. Just think about that. So it may not happen tomorrow. Don't go and start drinking 2 liters of water and you can't sleep because every 2 minutes you got to get up to go to the bathroom. No, start off with if you don't drink a lot of water, maybe drink 2 glasses, then 3 glasses, then 4 glasses. The body will adapt to it. And one way to know if you need water as men, all you have to do is check your urine. If it looks like wine, meaning it's dark, that's a problem. If it's dark, no good. It should be light, right? So that's one way to know. So if you're drinking juice and pop and all that and you're thinking you're being hydrated, no, that's a lot of sugar. So that's one way to check. Now, of course, the body have a way of responding by letting you know that, maybe if you're exercising, you feel like maybe a thirst, yes. But sometimes we don't feel thirsty. But if you check your urine, that's one way to know. Okay, so Pastor, you want to probably talk about this a little bit, and then we'll have a Q&A.
So just to look at the PDF spreadsheet that we do have there. And again, it's in the chat if you want to go ahead and download it. But it's just for you just to kind of jot down your own activity for the next month or so. And as you can see on there, it does have the type of activity, the numbers per day, and then the water intake per day as well, just to give you something to write it down and just to jot and make sure that you're journaling with it. Again, you can go ahead and do that because I believe that when we do these in terms of habits, over time, these will become lifelong habits that we will continue. And so we all want to be able to do this. Just please go ahead and download that from the chat onto your computer. We may be able to send it out later on to everyone, but just use that as we go for the next 30 days. They say it takes 21 to 28 days to change a habit. So maybe if we do this, this will become a good habit for us. So with that, we want to thank Darrin once again for the presentation for this evening, but we do want to open it up very quickly for some questions. If there are any questions, we're going to ask you to either raise your hand or just give us a wave in the through your camera. And any questions that you may have or anything that you may want to add as part of this presentation for us as men this evening.
I see a hand. William, I think, has a hand up.
Okay, go ahead, William, and then we'll have Rich.
Sure. Good evening, everybody. Just wanted to ask Brother Darrin, what are your thoughts on 2 things? One is activity and the other is diet, or an approach to diet. The first is activity. What are your thoughts on high intensity interval training? When you get to that level, what are the benefits and what are the sort of downfalls of that? And then the second part to that is, what are your thoughts on intermittent fasting?
Yeah, actually both are great. I've done both, as a matter of fact. Let's start with the last one, intermittent fasting. As a believer, we fast now and then. The difference with intermittent fasting is that you don't necessarily fast for prayer necessarily. But what you would do is that you would probably break off your meals differently. But the one that I like to advocate is stopping eating at a certain time. That's the type of intermittent fast that I use, William. So let's say I did it just not too long ago with a couple of my clients where we are so accustomed to eating late, and we all have reasons why. Well, here's why I get home late, and here's why, and we're not going to spend time on that. But what you can do, I said to them, was let's decide between 6 and 7 p.m. will be your last meal, but it will be your lightest meal. And then you won't eat anything until at least 7 a.m. That is your fast, so that you can break the fast or breakfast, right? But you do have other approaches to that where you may remove a meal. So you may have a breakfast and you may skip lunch and have a light supper. Or you may just have a breakfast and lunch and no supper. And that may be for a period of time, and then it can become a lifestyle, because I know of people who only have 2 meals a day. So even that, but intermittent fasting is not something that you want to do all the time, because it's just an approach to try to build a habit, maybe of not eating late, or removing certain items from your diet, such as a lot of sweets. So when we were doing that, we were not allowed to have sweets. Like if you normally have a donut, no donut for that time. And also removing most of your refined food. A lot of these processed food that we eat are part of our quote unquote breakfast. I'm seeing a note here, 8 to 12 hours, okay. And so you find that we got to watch the type of foods we're eating, because sometimes we're eating a lot of these breakfasts that are highly processed and packed with sugars. So during that time, you probably remove that and hopefully add something more healthier. That's a quick kind of answer to that. The other part to it is HIIT classes. I love them. I taught them for many years. You know, they can run from 20 minutes to half hour. It's a HIIT, high intensity interval training, right? So what it is that it just takes a lot of your energy in one burst. You use it, and what happens, the way that the body is designed, that even 24 hours, they've said even sometimes 48 hours later on, your body is still using energy, which means you're burning calories. So it's a very good way of weight management. But for some people, that might be a problem, because if you have hypertension, because the whole idea of high intensity is to get your heart rate up. But if you have heart problems, you may last the first round, and you better hope that your fitness instructor has CPR training, because it may work against you. So it has its benefit, but as we always recommend, talk with your health provider about it first. Tabata, like Tabata, I love it, but Tabata, you can do Tabata in 5 minutes. 5 minutes. But I guarantee you, you'll feel like you did it for an hour if it's done properly. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much.
Good question.
Rich, I'm going to ask you to go ahead and ask your question.
Hey, Darrin, thank you for the presentation. I had 2 questions. The first one being, you said after your walk, you usually drink coconut water, and it got me thinking about electrolytes. Are there any other sources of electrolytes other than coconut water? What are some of the benefits? And the second thing is to do with the pH of your overall body. I've heard that if we eat a more alkaline diet, that it's supposed to be helpful. Some people say eat a balanced diet. Any thoughts on that in terms of alkalinity and types of foods that we should be eating?
Good question. Now, well, first of all, one of the things, and again, I'm not skipping the question, is one of the things that we try to advocate is that there are certain people who are specialized in certain things. I'm not a nutritionist. I'm not a dietitian. So one of the things that we try not to do is answer questions that may be related to that, because first of all, what will happen is that people will say, well, the trainer said, eat this. The trainer said, don't eat that. But we don't know what your overall health is. And this is where you also want to check with your dietitian or check with your nutritionist. But in general, an alkaline diet, if you research it, is very helpful. A matter of fact, most of the time I would have a very alkaline smoothie in the morning, which is mainly greens and so forth, and helps to balance the pH and it will help to minimize anti-inflammatory issues and so forth. Again, don't want to get into that. I think it's a good question. I would suggest speak with a nutritionist, your doctor, and so forth to get a better answer. Quick answer is yes, it's very healthy. In terms of electrolyte, we lose it a lot. When we're working out, we lose it. Yes, coconut water is great for that. And most of us from the island or from the tropics, we grew up drinking it, not even thinking of words like electrolytes and all that. But there's other ways to get that if you use the proper fruits, combination, but also you have a lot of companies who have taken all the hard work, like places that produce natural plant-based supplements for after workouts, pre-workouts, during workouts. I can mention a few of them because I use them. They don't pay me to do that. Vega, Canadian company, I love their products. Iron Vegan, again, they have some good products that will have electrolytes, and it's more plant-based. Yeah. And then you can purchase that in your regular Shoppers Drug Mart and so forth.
All right. Samuel, I see your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, just a thought on shift work. I work shift work, and a lot of the balance for me is trying to determine when to eat, when to sleep, and when to exercise. So I just want to know what your thoughts are on that. Is it better to exercise after I wake up, in the afternoon from my nap from working my overnight shift, and a lot of two just trying to figure out when to eat. Should I not be eating during the day and then eat during my shift at night? Now I also do desk work, so I mean I'm not active, so that's a lot of the difficulty as well. But sometimes in the night I get hungry and I'm trying to figure out, okay, so should I eat? Should I wait till in the morning to eat? So just that. So what are your thoughts on shift work and exercise and nutrition?
Yeah, that's a difficult question to answer. Just yes, no. You have a lot of folk coming to the gym like that, especially they work in the auto industry where their shifts are changing, and so it's very hard to give a regimen program for a person like that. So what you have to do, my brother, is get on your knees and pray a lot. Says, Lord, help me, because you may do one thing for 2 weeks, right? And then all of a sudden you got to switch it over again. But I think having an idea that I propose is that the way the body is designed, it literally rests as the sun sets. It's just designed that way. And while our mind has been changed over years with shift works to adapt to it, what we notice is that once you retire, you go back to the normal, right? So I would suggest, even if you have to eat because of those shifts, eat lighter meals in the night still. But make sure it's high density in terms of nutrition. So it doesn't have to be a big meal, but it's nutritionally packed so that you're getting your nutrients. But at the same time, it's not such a heavy meal that you would eat in the daytime where now all night when you're working, the body's trying to digest and it can't because it has to give you energy to work. And you got to do desk work, and now you're falling asleep at the desk. You can lose your job. We can go on. So you could still have a nutritionally dense meal in a small package, right? So look into that. Maybe talk to a nutritionist or a dietitian. And we do have some recommendations out there in terms of these meals. I love smoothies. And you can make a really packed smoothie that when you drink that 1 glass or 2 glasses, you won't need anything to eat for a long time. But is that a lifestyle? Not necessarily a lifestyle.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much, Darrin. I truly appreciate you being able to share this evening's topic and just answering our questions as well. Where I know that you do sharing with some churches and some groups. If they were to try to get a hold of you, what is the best way to do that?
Well, they can speak with yourself. They can speak with my pastor, who's still on, Pastor Alex. I'll give you my personal email. It's darrinjohn@hotmail.com. That's DARRIN JOHN at hotmail.com. Let me just give praise to God, because just before the pandemic, I actually resigned from where I was working because I felt impressed that I could. Thank you, Pastor. So the thing is, just before this whole COVID-19, I just felt impressed. When you see the writing on the wall, and I said, you know what, I'm going to give my resignation. My goal was to start my own center of influence over here in Windsor. And so I gave my resignation. And a week before I'm supposed to finish working at this particular gym, we got our last check and a letter saying we're locked down because of COVID-19. So that gave me all this time to do all my business plan. So,
Awesome.
So I registered a business called Life Enhancing Training Center. And so the website is, you can check it out, it's Life Enhancing, .ca. And it's in progress. It should be up and running in a couple of weeks. And at the same time, we're looking for a place here in Windsor where we will have an Adventist approach to lifestyle and fitness.
That's awesome.
Applying the 8 laws that we have learned over the years that has made us one of the most long and vibrant living people on the planet. So why not share it with the people? Yeah. They pay me just to exercise with them. I'll give them more than they paid for by sharing the wonderful news that we have about the health message. So if you want to send me an email, go right ahead, and I can answer any other questions you may have.
Hey, thank you so much. And we'll continue to keep that venture in prayer as well. I know that it is much needed, especially in this time of COVID. And only God will know where this is going to go, but we pray for it. Now, for all the men, again, this is something that we are doing every single week for the months of October and November. And so next week, again, we come back at 7 p.m. And next week, we have the focus on finances. So this week was health and getting ourselves moving. But next week is going to be finances. And so, Lavardo, I'm just going to ask you just to unmute yourself and just give us a 30-second promo of what we can expect for next week.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. Thank you, Orlando, for allowing me to speak. Next week, and we also will follow up the following month, and my topic will be how to be a Canadian smart saver. I think it's very relevant because if you look at all of the participants on the call, we probably are first generation immigrants to Canada or second generation. And most of us are very familiar with our home country and how things work. But most people from my 17 years of experience are not familiar with the Canadian financial system inside and out. And COVID-19 bared this out because since March, a lot of individuals that were on solid ground or not so solid ground found themselves in the same financial situation now 7 months later. So I said, why not bring the topic, how do we now re-engineer our mind from the Canadian perspective? And we're going to bring the Bible reference to it as well. So we're going to be covering 3 key aspects: money management, basically identifying what's coming out and what's going in; wealth management and the various diversity of different types of assets; also estate management as well. Of course, the various level of financial literacy is different amongst the group, depending on your background and experience. So we're going to break it down into 2 sections. The first section is, how do you identify what is money management, for example? So we're going to work on the financial literacy and your understanding. Then the next phase is assess where you are in reference to where you should be. So we're going to do some little quiz and tests on the various aspects. And then the last phase is, how do you manage it? Some individuals, if you're single, you can manage it on your own. If you're part of a relationship, maybe you or your significant other can, or maybe you need professional help. But the presentation will bear all of this out. So please tune in. Next week, we're going to talk about how to become a Canadian smart saver. And we're going to start with money management, following with wealth management and estate management. Thank you for your time.
All right. So we are definitely looking forward to that. So tune in next week, bring a friend with you, share the link with men in your church. And so we can have this time together just to grow with one another. And